Hello, welcome to what I think will be the last video for working on your WordPress website. So I'm going to try to cover everything that we have left, which is mostly the contact page and what you'll need to put on the contact page. So I'll go over that, the final sort of requirements, making sure you've got everything checked off that you need to have on your site, and then at least a little bit of sort of bonus material like how to include YouTube videos if you want to add that sort of optional thing. I've mentioned in some previous videos that we need to go over some principles of design. So I'm going to go ahead and take just a few minutes and do some of that now. I've added a link to our materials page to a good website that talks about some of these basic principles. So we'll take a quick look at this, and then we do also have a really good chapter in the textbook, the Norton Field Guide, on design as well. So we'll start with this one. So the first one, simple is best, right? Keep it simple, don't try to over-design it. That's usually not too much of a problem for this assignment, except when people try to go a little overboard with the colors. Sometimes people try to make different fonts, different colors all over the place, and that can look really inconsistent, sloppy, not clean or professional. So yeah, just keep it simple. The few images, dark text on white background is usually a good way to go. Consistency is always important. If you have two different levels of text, like these items, and one of them is a different color than the other, or a different font or a different size, it's really obvious, and it just looks weird, right? So you want to be consistent with those things. That's why when I've showed you heading level 3, for example, for some of my subheadings, I made sure that all of the headings consistently used that heading level 3 so that I knew they were all the same size and style. Don't worry what it says about CSS. That's an aspect of web design that you're not needing to worry about because the WordPress theme takes care of that. Readability is particularly important, as we've talked about. You want it to be very legible. They have some fonts that they suggest here. When they talk about SEO, they're talking about search engine optimized. So the idea that designing your website with just a few simple, concerns in mind will help make it pop up on Google searches more easily than if you just kind of threw something together that didn't do everything it was supposed to. Mobile compatibility shouldn't be an issue. WordPress, most of the themes on there are already well designed for this. It is an issue with some other platforms, like if anybody's ever done a Wix website, they're kind of known for not working very well on mobile devices. But WordPress, you shouldn't really have to worry about that. So color palette and imagery, they pretty much say here again to keep it simple. You don't need to use too many different colors. You want to keep it consistent, not too varied. Easy loading. This is another thing. You really don't have to worry about this too much with WordPress, but it is a good reminder that you really want to stay away from too much JavaScript or Flash or other kinds of technology that can seem really cool on a website. Parallax is another one. They can all look really cool, but anytime you've got movement and something that looks really cool, it may slow the website down, make it harder to use, make it not show up as well on mobile devices, make it harder for screen readers to work, for the blind to be able to surf the internet with a screen reader that'll convert things into Braille. So really keeping it simple stretches to this as well. But you really don't have to worry about CSS, JavaScript, any of that specific stuff, because we're getting all that taken care of with the WordPress theme anyways. Navigation, so it's important to have your menu that's easy to find and works well and gets you the pages you need. Communication, they include mentioning on here headlines and subheadings. So again, you want to be consistent with those, but also make sure you use them. And they also mention bullet points rather than long, gusty sentences. So, for an about page, you have to have sentences and paragraphs, just like an article like this has to have sentences and paragraphs. But if there's a space on there where you could convert something to a bullet pointed list, then that's not a bad idea to do that. If you were going to list, for instance, some of the activities you did in the event that you talk about in your second paragraph, one of the things that inspired your major, then you might want to go ahead and, set that up within your paragraph so that you could just do a bullet pointed list of it. And that would help break up your page a little bit more so that it's not just paragraph after paragraph, but you've got some other layout elements, formatting elements going on there. So this is a good little article, reinforces some stuff that's in our textbook as well, but also just worth, seeing on here and knowing that people outside of colleges and universities talk about and think about design and websites and web design in some of these same ways. So I'm going to go back to materials, and I want to get into our textbook for just a couple more minutes here. So I'm going to go into the ebook, and I want one of the chapters in part 8, which is on media and design. And the most helpful of these is going to be chapter 57 on designing text. So I'm going to click on this one. This chapter gives a really good overview of a lot of important and relatively simple aspects of design. So I'm going to kind of just scroll down here to some stuff I want to specifically point out to you. Basic principles. So again, this is really important stuff. There's consistent again. There's keep it simple again. They give you some additional sort of discussion of those items. Balance is one that didn't come up in that article, but is also worth keeping in mind, thinking about. They give you an example website here. So the use of columns. Color and contrast, we've talked a little bit about, and I've mentioned about, wanting to not use too much and to make sure that you're using dark colors and a light background. You want it to be very legible. You want everything to show up very well. You want it to be easy to read. And they mentioned red-green contrasts are especially bad for people who are colorblind. So you want to specifically avoid some of those kinds of contrasts. But that's why you really want to keep it simple with just, a dark blue and then a white background kind of thing, like they have here. Available templates, we've got some of those. We've talked about those. In fact, basically your whole theme is a template. So you're already using templates by using your theme. And then some elements. So they talk about fonts more here, which is helpful. Layout, and here they give you some of the examples of putting stuff in paragraphs and lists, doing numbered lists or bullet points. Headings and subheadings. This nicely reinforces what the article says, what we've been talking about, being sure they're consistent. White space. Now, this is an aspect of design, kind of a simple one, but it really doesn't say hardly anything about it here. And the article didn't really say anything about it either. So it says, use white space to separate the various parts of a text. In general, 1-inch margins for the text of an essay or report, unless you're following MLA or APA, blah, blah, blah. So it gets into paper and 1-inch margins all around on the paper right away. But we're thinking about design in terms of a website. And so white space is still an important and helpful concept. So white space basically describes every place that there isn't something. So in this case, all of this white space that's in between these page numbers on the side and in between the paragraphs and the subheadings, all of this is white space. It's an important concept for thinking about like how busy a page is or how much it's, filled up with text that might be kind of intimidating or just look sort of unusual for a web page, a website. So like here, there's a lot of text, but they break it up in various ways, right? They've got the little, well, I'll go up even a little further. because they were describing lists and bullet points as ways of breaking things up and using white space. They've got the quotation right aligned here. They've got a small paragraph. They've got a block quotation, so it's further indented and separated with spaces above and below. There's spaces above different headings. This is indented. So all of that helps to break up the page in different ways. And so this is especially important for thinking about where your images are in relation to your text, and if there are ways you could break up your text that you haven't done so yet, like putting it into bullet pointed lists or something like that. So white space is important. And then they give you some suggestions for evaluating design. So this chapter in particular, I think, is really helpful. Chapter 57 on designing text. The whole section this is a part of, part 8, is really good about design. But this one is particularly good and relevant to what we're working on and should be really helpful for your website as well. So I'm on the materials page on Schoology, WordPress assignment. So yeah, let's take a look at the assignment prompt. Okay, so we want to focus on the key features here. Layout and design should attract the reader's interest. Your page must make use of fonts, colors, and layout to make more visually dynamic. You should also think of this in terms of usability and accessibility. So we've tried to do some of that, thinking about the relationship of where our images are at to where our text is at on some of the pages, the ones that include images. We also want to think about maybe some more use of color. We don't necessarily need much, but I don't think we've got very much in there at the moment. So it should be thorough and thoughtful, reflecting the amount of time we will have worked on it. All images should have Creative Commons licenses, so we've worked on that. Make sure they're properly cited. Organization should be clear and thoughtful. Remember that you don't want your user to have to scroll down very far on any of your pages. So this probably isn't going to be an issue for most of you, but if you ended up with a particularly long about page, for instance, which would be a good thing. That's not bad to have a lot to say about yourself, to try to sell yourself. But what you would probably want to do then is use a shorter version as your about page and have the longer version be a bio page or something like that, where somebody could click about more or see more, read more, whatever, and see more of that text without it all just being on the one page. The internet has trained us to prefer clicking links over scrolling. So you don't usually want to have to scroll down too far. Now, for your resume page, you want to have that all together. So even if that somehow has ended up a little bit on the longer side, you want to keep that together on one page. And you may just want to make some adjustments to your layout in order to work with the space that you have there. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that in this video as well, the layout in terms of good design and that sort of thing. The minimum number of pages required is 3, your about page, resume page, and contact page. So we'll do contact page in a moment. Site must exhibit meticulous editing and proofreading. So you definitely want to make sure that you're working on that as you go, but then also as you make sure that any of your pages are finished, that confirmation that you've got everything should also be confirming that all your text looks the way it should, that it's grammatically correct, the spelling's correct, that sort of thing. And there should be evidence that shows you paid attention to the rhetorical situation, especially purpose, audience, and design. So there, again, design, also purpose, you want to make sure you've got the right kind of tone, that the way you present yourself sounds professional, that you're not just, sort of talking yourself up without making it sound professional, right? Your target audience for this is a future employer. So you definitely want to have that in mind as well. All right, so I'm going to go back to materials, and now that we've double checked our bullet pointed list, I want to go down to the WordPress assignment expectations. And so this is another document that you should be coming back to as you're working on your website so that you can make sure you've got everything that you need. So this doesn't replace the bullet pointed list. It just adds on a little bit more detail of what exactly I'm looking for each of your pages. Because normally we'd have a chance to talk about these things in class, but since you're having to work on this outside of class asynchronously, these are the kinds of things I want to make sure that you include on your pages. So your about page, you need to have your 3 paragraphs, a picture cropped for your face, one more image, Creative Commons licensed and properly cited. Your resume page should include links when they're appropriate. Most of the information from your resume needs to be on there. And remember, you've got to have that link or button to download the PDF version of your resume. If I haven't mentioned this before, the note on here is a good reminder that you want to remove any contact information that you don't want to have on the internet, such as maybe your home address and cell phone number. Take those off from the version of the resume that you post as the PDF to download, because you don't want that to be on the internet either. And you're going to make plenty of ways for a user of your website to contact you anyways, so they're not going to need your address and phone number, because there are other more efficient ways to contact somebody on the web. So here, when we create our page in a moment, we're going to need to have a blank form that has lines for the users to put in their information. And we want to have contact information as well. That would be your email address. And if you want to have any profile links on there, you can. I wouldn't recommend a cell phone number, but sometimes people want to add a phone number on there, so that's optional. And this is another one of those moments where there's some redundancy here. The contact form and the email address are kind of doing the same thing, so we'll talk about why it's a good idea to have both. We want to have a Creative Commons licensed image, and for this, I'm suggesting simple like clip art is usually a good way to go. I'm really just looking for you to have some more practice with Creative Commons images, adding images, properly citing them. And so that's usually the easiest way to do it, is to do an image like this on your About page. At least 2 to 3 links overall. Most of those will probably be on Resume. Maybe all of them will be on Resume. Maybe some will be on About. You want to try to get rid of any stock images that came with your theme. So hopefully you chose a theme that didn't have a whole lot of images on there to begin with, or if they did, you found things to replace them with. But if not, you may want to change around your theme, because you can still do that. You shouldn't lose any of your content just by changing to a different theme. And then here are some of the optional items. I don't think I'm going to worry about the social media embed, because I don't usually get too many requests for that, but I will cover YouTube clips. There's usually at least a couple people who would like to do that, who have a good place on their site that they could include something, maybe a portfolio page. So I'll make sure I cover that as well, but it's completely optional, so I'm not requiring anybody to have a YouTube clip on their websites. So I'm signed into WordPress, and I want to create my contact page. So I'm going to go down to Pages, and I've got Resume, About, and I still have Home at the moment for my page, which I guess I'll just show you really quickly, since I've requested that you all, or at least suggested that you make your About page your home page. I've kept a home page just to explain to anybody who would find it, on the internet, that this is not my regular profile website, that I've given a link to it. So I've stuck with a home page, but I'm suggesting for you all to just have your About page be your home page. And we covered that in one of the earlier videos, but we might touch on it a little bit today, since we are going to have to update our menus today. But right now I want to add a new page. And this is going to be a contact page, and so it's entirely likely that your theme comes with contact pages. So you can see what some of these look like. This one's designed for more of a business. Actually, probably most of these are designed for business pages. Most of them have stock images you would need to replace. This one's pretty simple. This is right along the lines of what we're going to create. But we should be able to just create one from a blank page, which is what I'm going to show you. So if you want to try a template and then just monkey around with it a little bit, you could, but I want to go ahead and show you how to do this from scratch. So we need to add the title, so we're going to make this contact. A good standard page title that everybody recognizes. You know what you'll find when you click on contact in a menu. And now here, we've got to find the right kind of block. And remember that what kinds of blocks we have, how many, where they are in this list, all depend on what theme you're using. So if you have a hard time finding the block that we're looking for, you may have to search for a little bit, or you may end up needing to try out a different theme, because it may be that the theme you're using doesn't actually have this item, but hopefully they all do. So with my theme, the item I'm looking for is actually under Grow, and it's got this little Jetpack icon. So Jetpack is a plugin that WordPress uses, so it allows for certain things. And I'm looking for a form. Now, some of you, depending on your theme, might find form somewhere else. You might find something that says contact form, or you may not find anything like that. If you can't find it anywhere, you might actually need to go with one of those contact pages that the templates offered for a new page. But hopefully everybody would have a form or contact form as one of the items that you can add as a block. So I've added a form block here, and that's how it came up in my theme. So notice it says you'll receive an email notification when somebody fills out the form. Where should it go, and what should the subject line be? And you should have something like this if you have a default contact page that you're playing around with also, one of the templates. So I want my emails to go to my Gmail account. And the subject line, you want to make it something so that if somebody contacts you through your website, you know that's where the email is coming from, right? And so you know it's somebody trying to contact you about, business-related material or something like that. I'm going to put website communication, and that way that'll be the subject line that pops up, so I'll know from that subject line in my email that particular email has come from my website. All right, so I'm going to add form. And now this is what the form looks like, the Jetpack form for my theme for contact. And I'm actually going to go through, see, it's made each of these a separate block that the form just created for us so that it all works the way it should. So we definitely want name, email, and message. I'm going to delete the little website bit here, though, because we really don't need somebody to inform us of what their website is. If they want to, they could include a link to it, the URL, in their message. So just name, email, message, and then the submit button. That looks good. So let's go ahead and I'm going to publish this to see what it looks like. And it looks the way I want it to. Contact page, name, email, message. And it says these are required, so that's good. Now we still have to add just a little bit of text to this. But before we do that, let me show you a common question that comes up when students first create their contact page. Now, sometimes what happens is when you go to visit your site and you're on your contact page, sometimes it will actually preload this information with your information, just the name and email. Usually that only happens if you're signed into WordPress, which I am right now, but it actually hasn't preloaded my information, which is fine. The point is, you don't fill out this form, right? This is the form that a user of your website fills out to contact you. So when you go to it and it pre-fills with your information, that's not because you want that to be there or that's what's normally going to be there. That's just what happens if you're signed into your WordPress account and your web browser has gone ahead and preloaded your name and email because it knows those. WordPress knows those. So when you go to somebody else's WordPress site and you go to their contact page, it may very well preload with your information, so you can just type them a message and click submit, and you'll send them the message. But for yours, you don't type in anything into these fields. You just leave them blank. They're for your user to add their information to. So you don't need to do anything else with these. Now, the other element that we need on our contact page is a little bit of text information about how to contact us as well. So this is some of that redundancy that I mentioned earlier and that the assignment expectations talk about a little bit too. So probably below this form, I'm going to just go ahead and add a block, and I'm going to do just a paragraph or text block here. So you want to say something like, or you can reach me at, or you can email me at, or you can reach me by email at, and your email address. And it hasn't made it a link or anything, but that's okay. We just need the full address and we need to make sure that it's on there correctly. So I'm going to update again and view my page again. Now, why did I ask you to do that in addition to having this contact form to fill out? Well, some people are perfectly comfortable with doing these contact forms and, prefer to do that if they're on any particular website. Other people would prefer to use their email and just email somebody directly. Maybe they have, Outlook or a similar email app that they use, and they would prefer to contact you that way. And maybe it would even make it easier for them to keep track of the fact that they contacted you, when they contacted you, and all that kind of good stuff. So you want to make sure that your email is easily available on here as well. This will go to the same email that their message would, but I've been a bit redundant here so that I can make it as easy as possible for as large a variety of people as possible to contact me. And now, because I've got those two items, the contact form and the text with my email address, my contact page is almost done. I just need to add that image. So I'm going to go back to my Schoology page and go down to my Creative Commons search. Open this in a new window. And I want to do a search for, like I said, mail, envelope, contact, something like that. You could even do mail clip art or, include the word clip art on whatever you add if you wanted to. I'm going to do mail. I unchecked the use for commercial purposes. So I've tried the clip art library, but at least at the moment, it's not working for me. So I'm just going to do either Wikimedia Commons or Google Images. See what Google Images gets me. So I've done mail, and it's given me just a bunch of images, little email icons and stuff, right? Which is great. Now, I probably don't want to go with something too specific as being, the Google icon, the Gmail icon, or the icon that iPhones use, something like that. You don't necessarily want to show a preference for anything. And there are a little bit of variety of images here you could use too, right? Something like this is a little bit different. I kind of like this, except it's grayscale, black and white, and I'd like a little bit of color. This one's coming from Wikimedia Commons. Let me see if this full image... Okay, so it doesn't actually cut off the top like I was afraid it did. So we already know from experience Wikimedia Commons, very easy to use. Some of the other ones on there came from Pixabay, which can be difficult to use because it usually requires you to create an account. So I'm going to use this file on the web. We're going to do this the easy way. I need the file URL. Get back into edit mode here. And now I need to think about where I want to try to position my image. I think I'm going to try it at the top above my form. I'm going to go ahead and add, click on image here. It's at the bottom right now, but I'll move it. Insert from URL, since we've got the URL copied and pasted. Click the apply button, and there it is. It's very small right now, but that's fine. I'm going to drag it bigger, and I want to try aligning this right and then moving it to the top, and we're going to see if my form wraps around this or how it wraps around it. Okay, so it's at the top. Let me go ahead and try preview. Let's see what's happening here. Okay, that looks great to me. Like, that's kind of what I was hoping it would do, would be to have the name and email forms wrap around the image. That's exactly what I was hoping for, but it may not come that easily to you. You may have to play around a little bit with getting the image to be placed where you want it to be and to be in relation to your form the way you want it to be. Worst case scenario, just put it at the very top and center it, or put it at the very bottom and, place it anywhere at the bottom. You might want to have it, if you do end up putting it at the bottom, you might want to have it wrap around your text down here. So you would make it right or left aligned, and then just move it up next to the text so that it tries to wrap it around. But again, it's something you might have to play with a little bit, because placing images exactly where you want them doesn't always go as smoothly as you'd like it to. I've kept my Wikimedia Commons page open here, so I could use this as a caption. I could make it link back to where I got it from. I usually prefer to make it link back. In this case, I might actually do both, just because this is a nice simple caption that would still easily credit where I got it from. But at the moment, like I said, I prefer to just make them link, so we'll go with that. So now I'm going to take the page URL, because remember, I want this whole page that has the licensing information right here. Select my image, and while it's selected, I want to click the link icon. I'm going to paste that, and always remember you need to click the apply button or press enter. And now it looks like a link, so it should work okay. I am going to make this open in a new tab, because I don't actually want it to take somebody away from my contact page. And let's try updating. And you remember, you always want to try out your links after you make a link of any kind. And it works. There's the licensing information, and my contact page is still open in a different tab. All right, so contact page is completely done. I don't have to do anything else to it. The time I've spent on it just now has all of my boxes checked for what I needed for that. So our contact page is done. Even with my lengthy explanations, that took a little under 20 minutes. Notice, though, that our menu is not complete here. It only includes home, and none of my other pages are up here. So now that we've created additional pages, we need to go back and add them to the menu. So I'm going to get into my site menu. And here we need to get into customize. And we did a little bit with this in one of the early videos, but now we've got to come back to it, like I said, since we've created some new pages. So we want to go to menus, and my menu is listed as primary. Yours might just say menu, could say primary. I'm going to click add items, which is what I would click even if I wanted to get rid of something. And I do want to get rid of whatever this invalid page is. So now I've got 2 home pages, contact, resume, and about. And I'm not sure why there's 2 home. This one must have been to my old home page, maybe, that I got rid of. So I'm going to go ahead and get these added. And in fact, I'm going to take off home from my menu just because my home page that I've got isn't actually meant to act as a regular home page. It's just meant to, redirect somebody if they've come to my site accidentally. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that. So my menu is going to look like your menu should, with contact, resume, and about. And of course, you could add stuff. If you have a portfolio page or something else, you could add things, but you definitely want to have those three. You probably want to have them in the reverse order of how I have them now, because your about page is going to be your home page, right? Your main page, and contact should always come at the end. So I'm going about, resume, and contact, and then that's how they put them up here. Now your theme probably puts this menu somewhere else. It might put it here. It might be somewhere else. Again, we talked a little bit last time about how you could play with where your menu shows up on your page. I'm just going to stick with header. You don't need more than one menu for sure, because this is a small website. And then we want to make sure we save changes. So now I'm going to view my page, view my site. So yeah, this is that home page that redirects. And I've got about, resume, and contact. I'm still not completely finished yet. My contact page is done. And go back to about. This is pretty good. If I wanted to add a subheading somewhere or something, I could. And that would give me a way to get some color in and break up my paragraphs a little bit. But with an about page, you kind of expect it to be paragraphs of text like this. So I'm probably going to leave that. Let's check resume. So my resume page looks pretty much like a resume, right? And I've added some links. And so my links add a little bit of color. The actual link color that my theme uses is pretty subtle, which I happen to like, but it's not much color, right? And we don't want to go crazy with the resume. We don't want to make it look completely different from a regular resume, but this is certainly a place where we could add in a little bit of color, especially since we already have headings and subheadings. That's probably an easy place to get a little bit more color into our website. I need to get back into edit mode. And now if I wanted to change the color of my link here, I could click on it, and then over on the right, you see where it says color settings. I can click the drop down, and this is where I could change the color. I could do a custom. I probably wouldn't want to do just grayscale, and that shade of green is probably what it already is. But it could do a custom color of some kind. Now it's gone ahead and done the whole thing like that instead of just my link, which isn't what I've wanted. So probably to change just the link color, I would have to do that in my customize menu. It's a theme setting. So I'm not going to worry about that anyways. I'm actually fine with this link color, but that's where you would look for it if you did want to change that. I'm focused instead on my headings and subheadings. I'm going to go ahead and select this and go to color settings on the right. And let's try custom. And I want something that's going to go with my color palette, but also be a little bit darker maybe. So that looks nice. It's a kind of a dark blue there. And you want it to be a dark color on a white background, right? You want good contrast. You don't want to go with like a neon green or yellow or something that's going to be more difficult to read. I want this to be probably closer to the green of my link color, though. It doesn't have to be the same because links should look different. That's how somebody knows it's a link. So now I've got kind of a dark green there, but I want it to be a little bit more bluish. And that's pretty good. That's kind of goes along with this shade of green, I think, but also it's different. and it stands out, but it's not unusual for a resume, or at least a resume web page. So now let's see if I can get my other headings that are this H3, heading level 3, that same color. So we always want to be consistent. So probably the easiest way I think I'm going to have for this is to check my custom color here. And I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste the exact specifications of this color. So now I'm going to go back up to this one, go into color settings, custom, and I've pasted it in, and so now it's the exact same shade of green as that is. So then I will have one more heading at that level. I want to do the same thing with that. Okay, so now I've got some color in there and it's consistent, right? It's all of my heading level 3s and they're all the same shade. So you always want to make sure you're being consistent. And that's pretty good. That gets me a little bit of color without overdoing it. I'm sure we could do some more and not have it be too outrageous. I thought about doing the degrees I've got in bold here, but I'm concerned that if I do that in a color, that might look like it was supposed to be a link or something and it's not, especially since this one is so close to an actual link. And I could go and make all of these links, right? I just didn't for the sake of time, but it would actually make a lot of sense to link to all of those. Instead, I'm going to go ahead and get out of my resume page because I want to add a YouTube clip to my About page. So I need to go to Pages and About. If you wanted to do a YouTube clip, this is the most likely place you would put it. It probably wouldn't make as much sense on your resume page, but your About page could work just fine. So I'm going to go ahead, I think, and add it probably to the bottom here. And here I want to go to Embeds and YouTube. YouTube offers embed coding, but we're actually not going to need that here because the way this embed widget works, this embed block in our theme, is actually going to go ahead and make the regular video page into the embed anyways. I'm going to go to YouTube, and there's a particular video that I like to use, especially for close reading assignments and for literature classes, so I already know this is on here and it works well. So I could go to share, and if I was going to embed this in a regular website, I would want embed code. But because the embed widget's going to do the work for me, I just need the actual URL. So I need to go back to my edit page and paste that URL. Let's see if it works. All right, it looks like it does. And so I'm going to go ahead and add a caption. I want to try to explain to the user of my website why I've got a YouTube clip here. So I'm going to go with something like close reading analysis is a common assignment in college English courses. This clip shows one strategy. So I could up preview, but it probably wouldn't show it right. I mean, we can go ahead and take a look just to see. Okay, I guess it would. Sometimes if you preview with a YouTube clip or something like that, this won't actually show the clip. But I want to visit my site anyway, so I can always double check everything. Close reading analysis, common assignment, college English courses. This clip shows one strategy. And you can play the clip on my web page. Okay, so pretty simple and easy. I'm not worried about adding any more color to this page because I've got those couple images, even if I didn't have the YouTube clip on here. Those images add color and they're breaking up my text, so it's not just 3 blocks of text. So I think I'm pretty happy with the design of this page. So if you've been following along with the videos, then you should actually be done with your website now. You'll want to make sure that you go through, of course, and proofread and double check that everything that's on that list of expectations and on the assignment prompt with the bullet pointed list, you've got everything you need, but you should be done at this point. And this is the final assignment, so you don't have a final exam. This is the last thing you have to complete for me, unless you have work that you need to worry about making up. Make sure that I have your URL for your website, that you did post that to the discussion board on Schoology that I asked for a few weeks back. I have to have that in order to be able to find your site and see the work you've done on it. So if I don't have your URL, even if you've got a complete site, I have to input a 0 for it because I can't see it. I have no idea where your website is or how to find it in order to be able to assess it. So make sure that I've got your URL. Please let me know if you have any questions. If you've run into problems with anything, I haven't heard from too many people about too many problems. The only people who've really been in touch with me during office hours about websites, it's been mostly that they hadn't watched the most recent video or something like that. So hopefully I've done an okay job of addressing your questions in the videos. But this is a live class, even if we're not having live meetings in a classroom. So if you do run into questions, problems, anything, let me know and we can make sure to address that. You can always send me an email or we can schedule a Zoom meeting, or I still have my office hours on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays at 1 o'clock. So hopefully I'll see you then, and if not, I hope you have a safe and wonderful end of your semester, and good luck on your finals.